Coming up on Network Africa, Mali's military junta bans the media from reporting on political activities as the UN urges authorities to allow political activities thrive. Liberia's House of Representatives initiates probe into leakage of ex-President George Weah's assets declaration documents. Plus, South Sudanese parties adopt code of conduct ahead of December elections. Hello and welcome to the program, the last episode for the week. I'm Layo Olarinde in Lagos. We begin in Mali, where the ruling junta has banned the media from reporting on the activities of political parties and associations. Now, this comes a day after authorities suspended all political activities in the country. Mali's High Authority for Communication issued the order, which was widely spread on social media. It applies to all forms of the media, including television, radio, online, and print. The scope of the ban or how it would be applied in practice is not clear. It's also not clear if journalists will still be allowed to report on issues such as the economy, which are said to be closely tied to politics. Meanwhile, the United Nations has asked Mali's military junta to lift its recent ban on political activity in the West African country. Opposition groups have also been critical of the move by the military authorities, which have been in power since the 2020 coup. Now, this has increased tensions that have been building up since the junta broke its promise to hold presidential elections in February. Several political parties and civil society groups in Mali have rejected the ruling junta's order to suspend political activities, vowing to stage protests over the move. And as South Sudan races against the clock to complete a peaceful democratic transition through the conduct of its first national election in December 2024, progress on achieving outstanding peace benchmarks is lacking. Now, the technical, logistical, and operational and political framework to conduct an electoral process that is acceptable is also wanting. Now, as part of larger efforts to galvanize consensus, the political will among parties to the 2018 peace deal, the UN mission in the country recently supported a discussion-based forum hosted by South Sudan's Reconstituted Political Parties Council. The event brought together political actors and civil society representatives to agree upon a code of conduct that will govern the actions of political parties as the elections draw closer.
The adoption of the Code of Conduct therefore comes at a critical time as South Sudan prepares for elections in December, which is just about 9 months' time. A Code of Conduct for political parties is an essential ingredient to peaceful elections, as it will assist the parties to demarcate acceptable and prohibited conduct and ensure accountability for actions that are not in line with expectations.
We're encouraged that they have agreed to engage in continued constructive dialogue to build consensus regarding what type of elections will take place, the constitution-making process, and the disputes mechanism, or the future of the transitional security arrangements process, and an election security plan.
UNMISS and other stakeholders encourage us to support this process to the extent that we are here to see this code of conduct today being validated. On that note, I wish to congratulate you, the parties, having gone through this arduous task, which I believe is a wonderful, as it takes into account the interests of the South Sudanese people.
This code of conduct of political parties shall be enacted in accordance with the provision of Article 25 and together with the provision of Section A, 31 of the Transitional Constitution of the Republic of South Sudan, 2011, which grant the revitalized transitional government of national unity exclusive legislative powers over regulation of political parties. The provisions of this code of conduct shall apply to all political parties that will register in the Republic of South Sudan.
The Political Parties Forum today was a continuation of previous forums. What we were aiming to do today was to support a code of conduct, either mandatory or voluntary, between the political parties in the presence of the Political Parties Council. The output itself was a voluntary code of conduct agreed to by the political parties themselves. That, I think, is a positive and shows their collegiate wish to move towards an elections and have an electoral process and a code of conduct that builds upon best practice within the region. I think that was the main output and that was positive.
Well, Liberia's House of Representatives is investigating how former President George Weah's asset declaration documents were leaked to the public. It's not clear who leaked the papers, but legislators have summoned Senior Liberian Anti-Corruption Agency, LACC, their officials over the leak. They're expected to appear before the lawmakers next week. All senior government officials in Liberia, including presidents, are expected to declare their assets upon taking office before the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission. It is meant to ensure public officials avoid conflicts of interest and illicit wealth accumulation, but it's not mandatory for such declarations to be made public. We move down south. South Africa's Electoral Commission is appealing to the country's constitutional court after its judges this week overturned a ban on former President Jacob Zuma standing in the forthcoming election. The commission had barred Mr. Zuma's candidacy, arguing that the constitution bars from public office people who have been sentenced to more than 12 months in prison. Well, Mr. Zuma was given 15 months for contempt of court in 2021. Although he only served 3 months in jail. Earlier this week, South Africa's Electoral Court overturned that ruling, but did not publish its reason. The Electoral Commission has now asked the country's highest court to provide legal clarification on the issue. Meanwhile, Mr. Zuma's opposition party, Umkhonto weSizwe MK Party, has called for the immediate resignation of Janet Love, a top official at South Africa's Electoral Commission. The MK Party says Ms. Love should not be involved in the elections due to her previous ties to the ruling ANC party.
The masses
Well, South African consumers are facing a high cost of living as the price of a basic food basket has increased by 8.3% in just 1 year. This uptick translates into increased expenditure for households, businesses, and motorists alike, impacting essential needs like food and fuel additionally. The burden is compounded by escalating electricity rates and fuel prices, collectively straining people's finances. Mamesle Sebe, president of the General Industries Workers Union of South Africa, says the working class should oppose the current interest rates.
It is the masses that bear the consequences of the decisions that are taken in the interest of the same people that cause this crisis of inflation and, of course, of currency collapse. It is head they win, it is tail we lose. That is how decisions are being taken in their interest and at our expense. The only alternatives is for the working class to mobilize to oppose the current trajectory of the South African Reserve Bank, to oppose the current interest rates, to demand accountability and the change in the board of the South African Reserve Bank, particularly its Monetary Policy Committee, to ensure that it is made up of people that represent the interests of the vast majority of the working class and the middle class people who bear the full cost of the decisions that are being taken by the bank. Above all, we must reverse the decision to privatize South African Reserve Bank. Nowhere, or at least in the overwhelming majority of the countries of the world, the reserve banks or the central banks are owned by the state and are accountable on their public mandate to the public interest and not to the private interest.
Now, over the last decade, Zimbabwe has tried to stabilize its economy through the abolishment of the old Zimbabwean dollar, the introduction of the multi-currency system, and even a digital currency. The Southern African country has now added one more currency to the list, the Zimbabwe Gold, more commonly known as the ZiG. The ZiG is a legitimate currency within the borders of Zimbabwe amid uncertainties regarding the success of Zimbabwe's currency. Or the Zimbabwean African People Union has embraced this initiative.
We now have a new currency in Zimbabwe, and what is being questioned is how long will it last, as the previous currencies have faltered. ZAPA acknowledges the introduction of the new currency based on the gold bullion stored at the Reserve Bank to buttress it. We believe this is a positive approach, which should result in a stable currency as we progress with all economic endeavors to support it. ZAPA is, however, concerned that the amount of gold stocked at the Reserve Bank to purchase the new currency is inadequate. We were informed that there is only 1.1 billion of gold in stock, and quite frankly, embarrassed by the current state of the Reserve Bank vaults. For this currency to hold its own value and be properly tradable, we need to increase the amount of gold stored at the Reserve Bank. There should be a deliberate effort to stock a confirmed amount of gold at the Reserve Bank at all times, and a clear target should be set to accumulate a certain amount over a 5-year or a 10-year period to guarantee the strength of our currency. If we reserve at least 10% to 15% of the annual national production, which is currently standing between 30 and 37 billion tons per year, we should be able to incrementally stock 3 tons of gold every year.
You're watching Network Africa on Channels Television. Still ahead on the program. Russian military instructors arrive in Niger to train the national army and foster military cooperation. We'll give you more details after the break. Please join us again. Welcome back to the program. Ukraine has opened a new embassy in Côte d'Ivoire, and this is coming a day after opening a similar one in the Democratic Republic of Congo as part of Kyiv's efforts to expand its presence on the continent. The Ukrainian Special Envoy for Africa and the Middle East, Maxim Subk, calls it a brilliant new chapter, adding that the history of Ukrainian and African and Ivorian relations are upheld. Mr. Subk also expressed appreciation for the country's support for Ukraine's sovereignty and integrity, including voting in favor of key UN resolutions on the large-scale Russian invasion. The Ukrainian Special Envoy is on a tour of various African countries to open several embassies and many see this as a way to counter Russian influence on the continent. In March, the DR Congo opened a consulate office in Kyiv's region in Ukraine, covering the territories of Lviv and Rivne areas. Russian military instructors have arrived in Niger to train the national army as Moscow continues to bolster its influence in the troubled Sahel region of West Africa. The military specialists say they are around to develop military cooperation between Russia and Niger. According to local media, the military instructors are also bringing an air defense system. Their arrival followed a recent agreement between Niger's Junta and Russia to boost security cooperation. The West African country has pivoted towards Moscow since the Junta seized power in a coup last year. It has broken off long-standing military and diplomatic ties with France, and like neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso, is also turning to Russia for support in beating down a jihadist insurgency. Well, back here in Nigeria, the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has reiterated his administration's commitment to make the Badagry axis of the state a tourist attraction city. Speaking to journalists during a working tour of Badagry, Governor Sanwo-Olu says he will complete all ongoing projects in the area and restore some of the heritage sites to tell a compelling story about what Badagry holds for the tourism potential of Nigeria.
Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu and his entourage, including the chairman of Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, Honorable Abike Dabri-Arewa, visit the ancient city of Badagry, and the first stop is the slave market, Museum International, Badagry, to see the historic artwork crafted several decades ago.
The voodoo priest in Badagry, so that's the platinum concussion given to Rishalanda to prove his innocence.
Badagry is a tourist destination where history has been made. One of such is the seat of the fallen Agia tree, where Christianity was first preached in 1842. The team also stopped over to inspect some of the ongoing projects in the area.
One of the things, if they want to sell the land, for us is to complete the ongoing projects that we've seen, to also restore some of the heritage sites that we've seen, not to completely, deface it, but just to restore them, and to generally just preserve what we have, and to be able to speak, a very compelling story about what Badagry truly really is and what it holds for the tourism potential of our country. We've also seen that Badagry is actually having a major facelift. There are lots of new roads that you've seen, dual carriage roads that are nearing completion. We've all seen it that we came around the last time to open the hospital. We've seen the roads that they've all been done extensively. And indeed, Badagry, I'm very impressed.
Badagry is a town of many firsts, from the first-story building in Nigeria built in 1842, and the first museum in Nigeria opened in 1889, and the Badagry Heritage Museum. The Lagos State government says it's ready to tap into the tourism potentials of the town.
Really is to make sure that no part of Lagos is left underdeveloped or undeveloped. And tourism being in a major cardinal of our team's agenda, I needed to come and see things for myself too, and also help. You saw around the Agia Center that we have like an amphitheater there. There are a few projects here that we also need to complete around the marina here. But I'm satisfied, knowing fully well that we still have a lot of opportunity to do for Nigeria. And you can see that on the tour. The Diaspora Commission is also with us. We have a diaspora agency already now. So it's really to just make, Lagos and Badagry in particular, a tourist destination, for all of our international and local audience.
Governor Sanwo-Olu rounds up his tour by taking a boat ride to the point of no return, where slaves were taken to different parts of the world during the slave trade era.
A Tunisian woman is providing love and care to hundreds of animals that are sick. The pet lover has turned her house to some sort of hospital for the ailing creatures in Sidi Hussein, Tunis, the Tunisian capital.
Tunisian woman Huda Bouchada has turned her home into an animal sanctuary for over 400 cats and 20 dogs. Her haven for the creatures is in Sidi Hussein, in the southwest of the capital, Tunis.
I'm Huda Bouchada, a 43-year-old woman and a pet lover, especially cats and dogs.
Huda cares for the animals every day. The furry friends receive daily attention for a range of conditions. She is preparing food and medications while explaining that she had to move several times due to landlords having issues with the number of cats and dogs.
I live in the city of Sidi Hussein, and before that, I had relocated among several areas. I had relocated to several areas, including Sidi Tabet, Ariana, Dar al-Hush, and Na Asan. The owners of all the houses I rented expelled me because they did not like cats.
Her dedication has taken its toll on her own health, although she says she has become used to feeling tired and would only worry if she took a day off, even though a month-long break would be very welcome if she knew her pets were getting the best care.
I have no job. I spend all my time with the animals. I long for 1 month break so I can sleep free of any thoughts, as my body is extremely exhausted right now. But I've really gotten used to it. When a day passes without having something to do or exert efforts, I feel sick.
حاشيكم الكونسير سيدا الحجر في الكلاوي الحجر في المجرى نتاع البوله عندي شكون مريض بالسكر يعني امراض كيف ما نحن بالضبط عندنا.
Huda offers some very complex care for her animals indeed, with some cats needing treatment for cancer, feline AIDS, kidney and urology issues, as well as diabetes.
And that's it on the program for today and for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde. Have a lovely weekend.